Welcome to today's lesson on the labor relations system. Before going into specifics, let us first consider the definition of a labor relations system. A country's labor relations system can be described as the set of rules, regulations, structures, and processes established and used by the parties involved to resolve conflict and disputes within the workplace. These parties refer to the employer, employees that are represented by their trade unions, and the state. The type of labor relations system within a particular society will greatly depend on the dominant socio-political and economic ideology of the country. A typical labor relations system consists of four main components. We have the inputs referring to internal and external inputs, the conversion process, specific outcomes or outputs, and the feedback loop. Let us now consider each of these components with the help of a relevant example. Inputs. The labor relations system includes two main inputs that coexist and interact constantly. The internal input is regarded as the relationship between the three main role players in the employer-employee relationship, known as the employer, employees represented by the trade unions, and the state. Each role player has their own values, interests, goals, and objectives, which could potentially lead to conflict within the workplace if not managed properly. This relationship does not, however, exist within a vacuum. It forms part of the broader external environment, in this instance known as the external inputs of the labor relations system. These external inputs include the economic system, political system, legal system, and social system of a specific country. The internal inputs will always be surrounded and influenced by the external input or environment. Therefore, what happens within the organization and the relationship between employer and employees will influence the external environment and vice versa. Let us consider the following example. When employees in your organization are unhappy about their wages, they might approach their unions to demand an increase. If the organization is unable to provide them with a demanded increase, the unions may be dissatisfied and call for a strike by all its members. When employees embark on a strike, it not only influences the organization in the form of lost profits, but also impacts the overall economy of the country in reduced taxes, possible retrenchments, and increased unemployment. Let's now move over to the second component, the conversion process. Considering the typical example provided, most organizations are faced with one of three routes that will enable them to resolve the conflict between employees and the employer and focus on increasing productivity and building their relationships. Organizations can choose to make use of structures such as bargaining councils, the CCMA, statutory councils, or the labor court. They can also choose to make use of in-company procedures such as grievance procedures and disciplinary procedures to resolve the conflict. Otherwise, they can consider using processes such as collective bargaining, mediation, and arbitration in an attempt to restore the relationship. Given the example we are looking at, most employers will attempt to resolve the conflict situation internally first by following the in-company procedure where trade unions are encouraged to lodge a collective grievance with the management team. If this attempt fails, employers will be forced to make use of a process such as collective bargaining and a structure such as the CCMA to resolve the conflict situation between parties. The conversion process will lead to a specific outcome, otherwise known as the output of the labor relations system. Parties can either reach an agreement, or it could lead to aggravated conflict between parties. If parties reach an agreement, they will either reach a substantive agreement on bread and butter issues, such as the case in this example where employees demanded an increase in their salaries, or they can reach a procedural agreement related to disciplinary procedures or the recognition of a trade union. If this is not possible, it will lead to further conflict and a breakdown in the relationship between employer and employees. Whatever the outcome or output, there will be a fourth component known as the feedback loop that uses the output as a new input into the labor relations system. If parties in this example come to an agreement about a particular wage increase, parties will only be satisfied once the agreement has been implemented into the labor relations system. The output will therefore serve as a new input into the system, and the agreed increase in wages will be implemented. If parties could not reach an agreement, however, it will lead to a further breakdown in the relationship, restarting the system in an attempt to reach an agreement and resolve a conflict between parties.